So you're back on my channel. See the red light? That means this video is going to be intense. Well, I promised you an intense video, right? Today I'll show you the inside of this MacBook. We're also going to replace the keyboard. This is where the real challenge comes in. This model's keyboard is held down with such tight clips that you can't simply unscrew it and swap it out. We'll need to carefully pry it out. But first, let's take a look inside. What do we have here? It's a 2015 MacBook. From 2012 to 2017, they essentially stayed the same in terms of design. Almost no changes there. But we're interested in what's inside this one. And we're replacing the keyboard because some of the keys are no longer working. By the way, we should probably drop the word "by the way." So what tools do we need? First, a knife, the keyboard, the metal base, the good buttons. We've got Russian buttons and symbols here. And what do we have on this one? Some kind of Western symbols. The depraved West, as we like to call it. Our favorite set. A screwdriver and screws. These will come in handy later on. We'll even make a custom bracket for these screws. For now, we only need 2 bits from this set, but we'll see as we go along. Let's start by seeing what's inside. First up, we have the screws on the lid. Looks like there are 10 of them. We'll take our 5-gram Pendlelobe screwdriver and get to work. Now, you might wonder why I always seem to be disassembling Apple devices. Well, first of all, I really like the technology. I use it myself. For instance, this is actually my friend's computer. I offered to help him replace the keyboard. And at the same time, we can check out the MacBook's internal layout. Alright, we've unscrewed the 10 screws. The cover is held by just one latch. So what do we see? The first major component that stands out is the battery. Before we go any further, we need to disconnect it. The connector comes out toward you by using this small tab. Be careful not to lift it up, as that can tear the battery connector. Now, we'll need another 5-gram bit, since the battery screws are a different size. The battery is held in place with 5 bolts. We'll unscrew it quickly. By the way, the battery's performance is still pretty decent, even for a 2015 model. After removing the 5 screws, we've got the battery out. It's rated at 7,150 mAh. To replace the keyboard on this laptop, we'll need to take it apart completely. This involves removing the motherboard, the top cover where the display is, and disconnecting all the ribbon cables. Here's the main ribbon cable, which links the main board to the charging board. The first thing we do is disconnect the display. We lift this lever, pull out the connector, and it's out. We'll disconnect that too. At the start of the video, I mentioned only needing 2 bits. Well, I was wrong. We're up to 4 now. Even the solid-state drive turned out to need a different bit. This is the Mac storage. It disconnects this way. It simply slides out. This one is only 28 gigabyte. The solid-state drive is out. We'll keep disconnecting everything we see. Here's the right speaker. It's only held in place with a piece of tape. And there you have it. This is what a MacBook speaker looks like. We lift it very carefully. It's also attached with some 3mm tape. I'm keeping everything organized because I'll need to reassemble it later. After all, we're not taking this apart forever. No promises though. Moving on, I'm disconnecting the backlight, the keyboard, and the touchpad ribbon cable. It is glued down. I'll carefully disconnect it from both sides. Now, let's check out the board. What's on it? Looks like a tiny microphone. We use it for calls on Zoom or FaceTime. It's got 2 small holes. Those are the microphones. I'm disconnecting the board that holds the connectors. This MacBook has just 1 fan to cool the board and processor. I'll unscrew the last screw holding it in place. And I'll remove the cooler. Now that the cooler is off, the board with connectors is finally free. It includes connections for the front camera. So here I remove the board. Universal serial bus, headphone jack, and MagSafe charging port. We'll start by disconnecting the ribbon for the front camera, though I'm not sure why I call it front. I've unscrewed 1 screw from the board, but there are still a few left. One of these screws is hiding behind the Wi-Fi antenna. Before we can unscrew it, we need to remove the antenna itself. While I'm carefully disconnecting this, let me share an interesting story. A friend of mine was drinking wine near her MacBook. With the bottle close by, her cat wandered over and knocked an entire glass of wine onto the MacBook. Surprisingly, nothing catastrophic happened. I replaced her keyboard just like I'm doing here, and her MacBook is still working to this day. These machines are pretty resilient. Here's where the Wi-Fi antenna slots are located. We lift them up and carefully slide the board to the side. We're turning this into quite a construction project already. Now, the most interesting part is probably about to begin, or maybe that'll come a little later. For now, we need to unscrew the main body of this computer. I've removed the Wi-Fi antenna, and I've loosened 2 screws on each side. I left 1 screw on each side slightly tightened. This is because, to remove the cap, those bolts need to hold it in place. I've loosened it a bit to make it easier for later. We open it until it reaches this position. Our fasteners have released, so they'll let us take off the cover when we're ready. And there we have it, all separated. That's what a fully disassembled MacBook looks like. The top cover is likely one of the most valuable parts of this computer. Now the story continues with the removal of the keyboard. This is the keyboard ribbon. There's a clamp inside here. There, it's done. We're unfastening the clasp. We're carefully pulling the ribbon toward us. It's crucial not to pull it out too quickly. I'll secure the clamp for now. Here we have the top black layer. What's this? It's the keyboard backlight. The diodes light up and the conductive layer spreads the light evenly under the keys. Now it's time for the knife. We carefully lift this layer. Let me tell you, it's quite a hassle to do this, but I managed to get it done in about 10 minutes. We're working our way along the sides with a sharp tool, lifting the backlight layer and gently peeling off the black tape between the buttons. And voila! There are a few small tears, but they won't significantly affect the end result. Everything will work. Everything will light up just fine. Now on to the next challenge. Cross-shaped screws along the edges. Looks like we need another bit. So much for only needing 2. The screws here are all the same, so we'll unscrew them and keep them in one pile. I've already removed around 15 screws, with about twice as many still left. Make sure not to lose them, as we'll need them for reassembly to keep the keyboard secure. By the way, I have an extra set of screws. They are specifically for the center, even though we see there aren't any currently in place. How will we secure it? You'll see soon enough. The process is a bit tedious, but it's something you can do at home. Just order a replacement keyboard on AliExpress or one of our local websites. They're readily available with our Russian layout. I've removed the last screw. See you in a moment. Let's hope everything goes smoothly. Fingers crossed that I keep all my fingers intact and that we don't cause any damage during this assembly. Now let's get to work. We grab on firmly. Yep, there's no gentle way around it. This is how you remove the keyboard from this kind of computer. That's why we had to disassemble the entire device. There's really no other way to do it. After removing the keyboard, we're left with a bunch of tiny metal pieces lying around. Don't worry, that's completely normal. This was exactly the goal. Why did I go through all that trouble? So we could tear these holders off the frame, creating small holes. I knew everything in advance. This is where we can later secure the screws. Now let's get this cleaned up. Let's move on to installing the new keyboard. An interesting point. The enter key here is rectangular, as this keyboard originally didn't belong to this model. Alright, what do we have here? The pins went through the base. So this whole set of screws needs to go back in. It's definitely not a quick process. So prepare to be patient. I'll return once I'm ready to show where each of these screws should go. Honestly, I'm getting a bit tired. There are just so many screws. I keep calling them bolts for some reason. Anyway, I finally tightened them all, but the keyboard is giving me trouble. The pins that held the keys have fallen out. What's the plan now? Luckily, I have a set of replacement screws. I see that the center is sagging quite a bit. There, it's holding. Excellent, excellent. A little more tightening. And it's secured perfectly. Alright, we can see where there's space for a screw. We screw it in there to secure the keyboard firmly. Not all screws will be necessary. 10 to 15 should be enough. And we'll make it look like it's straight from the factory. We're not tightening too hard, just enough to avoid stripping the thread. The buttons are already holding well. We just locate each spot for a screw and fasten it in. It's also good to press down a bit so that the pins fit snugly into the slots, making sure the keyboard is tightly secured to the frame. I'm all for securing it as firmly as possible so the keyboard feels solid with no looseness when pressing the keys. By the way, when I ordered the keyboard, the seller's website suggested purchasing these additional screws. Glad they had that option. They cost next to nothing, but they make a big difference. Every key is pressing down smoothly. There are no issues. Alright, a quick final check. We press each key, look for any looseness. Just one more screw needed here. Now everything is in place. Time to start the reassembly. We begin by putting the keyboard backlight back in. It has these little pins. They line up for proper installation. Just line up 3 pins here and 1 there. We smooth it over the keyboard and secure it on the sides. It's nearly as neat as it was from the factory, though there are slight traces of our work. But honestly, there's no other way. This is probably the most detailed keyboard replacement guide you'll find. To reinstall the keyboard ribbon, remember to release the latch first, and only then insert the ribbon. Alright, let's move on. Now for this little piece, I'm struggling to get it to click. The center seems slightly off, nearly everything is assembled. Just a few final steps left. The speakers went back in easily. No extra steps required. Just press it firmly into place. The Wi-Fi display, the trackpad and keyboard are all reconnected, along with the ribbon cable that links the main board to the boards for charging ports, headphone jacks, and antennas. There's also a service connector here. Don't worry if it's empty, that's normal. Now we're reattaching the battery. Very carefully. It's all coming together. Almost everything is ready. The longer screws go in the center. The smaller ones go on the sides and bottom. There's one latch that got stuck here. Alright, all the screws are in place. By the way, not a single spare screw this time. Here it is, our new keyboard. Everything is installed perfectly. No key feels loose. By the way, there's a great website called Online Keyboard Test where you can check if everything's working. You just press the buttons on your computer and the corresponding keys light up on the screen. That shows the keyboard is fully functional. Everything is set up nicely here. So today we took it all apart, explored how to change the battery, remove the motherboard, and reconnect all the ribbons. We also swapped out the keyboard. This is what a MacBook looks like on the inside. A thin, lightweight model from Apple. Disassembly only took about 20 minutes. Though reassembly, especially peeling off the black backlight, was a bit tricky. But hey, I got it done. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments what other devices you'd like to see taken apart on the channel. I'll make sure to create a video for it. Don't forget to like and share this video. See you.